Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Jay Moore with Unifour Life and Retirement, and today I have a special guest with me. My first guest of my podcast, Miss Krystal Totherow. Krystal, how are you?
I'm doing all right, Jay. How are you?
I'm doing great. Can't complain for a Friday. It's always good.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you not doing it on a Monday.
I do my best. I try. Thanks for working with me on that. Folks, I've got Krystal here with me today, and Krystal has an interesting story. She is a native of Hickory, North Carolina, and part of my story goes is going to be discussing her mother that had cancer, and then Krystal's going to go in with her situation as well that she's had. Interesting story. It's very interesting. I think it's an eye opener for a lot of us. And Krystal, without further ado, if we could go into your mother's story, I think it'd be great.
Yeah, sure. Again, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Let's see. Where do we start? So in 2000 and I can't even remember what year it was now. What are we, 23?
So far, yes.
Yeah, okay. So when I was 29, we'll say that, my mother was diagnosed with triple-negative breast cancer, which is one of the more aggressive forms to be diagnosed with. And she was 53 when she was diagnosed. And then within a year of her being diagnosed, she went to her yearly follow-up and her CAT scan, and we found that it had already spread to her lungs. And at that point, it was metastatic, and the type of cancer that it was, and the fact that my mom chose to no longer do any type of treatment, we knew that she was terminal. My mom's younger sister, who is 9 years younger than her, was also diagnosed with breast cancer within that same year, and the same type of breast cancer. So they both got tested to see if they had it's BRCA, the BRCA gene, which puts you at a super high risk of having breast cancer. It's 97% chance for breast cancer and about a 42% chance at ovarian cancer. They both tested positive. And that being said, there's a 50-50 chance that you pass it on to your children. So while my mom was sick, I did not get tested. She wanted me to get tested. And it's not something I wanted to add on. I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, both girls, working full time. And then taking care of my mom, it wasn't something that I was mentally prepared to deal with at the moment, right?
Right.
So less than 2 years, it was in December 5th, my mom passed away. It would have been 2 years from her diagnosis in March the following year. And she was 50, almost 55, or 55, yeah. So super young, right? And
yes.
Not long after my mom passed away, reality hit, right? I just felt like I wasn't doing my due diligence as a mom, as a woman, to just make sure that I didn't have that gene. Knowing it was a possibility, I felt like I was doing myself an injustice, right?
Right.
Not taking advantage of technology and science to be able to get ahead of it.
Sure.
So the following fall, I got tested, and you have to wait a couple of weeks for your results. And I'll never forget where I was. I was at a convention for work in Tampa, setting up a booth, and then the genetic company called me and asked me if I was ready. And of course, I knew they had the results. I wasn't going to wait.
Right.
So they told me, and I did test positive, and they tried to run through all the scenarios and the percentages of what I was sitting with at the moment, and not really anything that I processed at the time, because I just kind of shut everything out as soon as I heard it.
Right.
But that being said, I had a couple of days. I was excited to get back home to my husband and my family, because it was weird to digest that in a hotel room.
Right.
But so I got home, and my husband and I immediately talked through what we would want to do, and I'll have to give him credit, he was on board for whatever choice I made. Obviously, he just kept telling me, he just wants me here. He doesn't care, what it takes. If I'm willing to go for it, his most important thing is for me to be here.
You had a good support staff with you.
Yeah,
Good.
and incredible. Friends, family, extended family, I could not have gone through it. But anyway, got the results back, tested positive, and then my first follow-up appointment, I decided, let's do it. Let's have the surgeries. Let's remove all of this that's given me such a high risk of getting breast cancer. And so I decided it was the end of September, and I decided to schedule my double mastectomy. I worked with a doctor that specialized in mastectomies and with a cancer doctor as well, or an oncologist as well. And even they were incredible because they were very blunt. And, I said, if you were me, what would you do? And the female doctor said, you know what? Like, I can't tell you when. It's not a matter of if. Like, you'll get breast cancer. Right.
She couldn't tell you age. She just said, hey, Krystal, this is what you got to look forward to in your later years. Oh.
Yeah, and she said there was about a 90% chance that I would have the same type of breast cancer that my mom had. And going through that with her and knowing those risks, like even with treatment, it was like a 68% chance of recurrence within the first 2 years. And there are so many different variations of breast cancer. They're all cancer in general, right? It's scary.
Yes, it is.
Like, it's so unknown, and like it's like the worst word, regardless of the type, right? And
that's it.
But being a little bit knowledgeable in it, I just knew, being 30 years old and knowing that I had just went through my mom passing away and having to process that, and even now at 34, knowing how much I really, I need my mom all the time, right? And
right.
There's so many things, God, I wish I could tell her. And so I honestly couldn't look at my girls anymore without, getting super emotional and knowing, they need me, and they need me here for a really long time.
Right.
Not that I can control everything else, right? But I knew in that moment I could control that. So I just decided, that was the best choice for me, for my family. And so January 10th, so as soon as I got the first one on the books. She's like, well, I'm going on vacation the last couple of weeks of January. I was like, let's do it before. So I did it. I had the double mastectomy, and I went through all the process of getting ready for the reconstructive surgery. We won't go into it, but there's steps that have to be taken just to prepare your body for that. And then had the reconstructive surgery in May. Right in the height of COVID. I got to do it alone.
Did you really? Oh.
Yeah. The reconstructive part became an elective surgery, so it got pushed back a little bit. And then because of all the COVID precautions, I couldn't have anyone inside with me. So my husband had to drop me off at the front door. And so that was kind of foreign, which in hindsight, it was the lesser of the two evils of the surgery. So I'm glad that he was there for the first one. And I survived. I made it through the second one. Here we are.
Let me ask you about your mom, Krystal. Yeah. She was diagnosed at the ripe young age of
53.
53 years of age.
Yep.
A lot of people think when you're diagnosed with cancer, you have heart disease or anything in general.
Yeah.
They always look back and they say, well, maybe it was due to nicotine usage or maybe unhealthy lifestyle. Your mom's lifestyle, anything you want to add? How was her eating habits? How was her she exercise?
So my mom, by nature, was a super active, hyper person. She could never sit still. She did smoke, but thinking of anybody born in the 60s, right? Exactly. It's common. And she didn't get lung cancer. She got breast cancer.
Right.
Which that can all work together and lead one to another. But as a whole, she was a decently healthy person. She rode a motorcycle. She had a boat. She was out on the lake all the time. She just was always moving. Worked full time. Took care of herself. Did her yearly physicals, and then she just went. It just was a chance of luck. She went that year, and then they found something.
There's. I always call myself a child of the 80s. Even though I was born in the 70s, you really don't get to start doing and knowing things till the 80s.
Yeah.
And back in the 80s, if somebody had cancer, they were older.
Right.
And I'm not talking about 50s. I'm talking about way older. And they just, they died from it.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that people have nowadays when you have cancer. You mentioned earlier about how there's different types of cancer, even cancers that may not be all that bad. You just hate hearing that word cancer.
Right.
It's kind of like a snake bite. Mm-hmm. I don't care if a snake is venomous or not venomous. I could care less about getting bit by one.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
Going back to you yourself had the gene.
Right.
The BRCA.
The BRCA gene.
The BRCA gene.
Yeah.
I hope I said that right. The BRCA gene. And
Yeah.
that's something that the doctors told you. They were up front. They said, Krystal, it's not a matter of if, it is 100% when you will be getting diagnosed with breast cancer.
Right.
You took action.
Yeah.
You said, I don't want to sit back and worry about in my 50s or 60s, whatever it may be, when when I'm going to get the dreaded news.
Right.
I'm going to go ahead and take care of the situation now, so that takes care of that.
Yeah.
Huge move for you, right? I mean, it was something you wanted to be there for your daughters, your husband, your family.
Yeah.
So it's a brave move, Something I have got, Krystal, that a lot of people, and I say this because I have been working in the life insurance industry with Transamerica for the past 7.5 years. And every time I meet clients, I ask them, do you know what life insurance is good for? What are your thoughts? I think when I met with you a couple weeks ago, I asked you the same questions.
Probably.
I said, Krystal, what's life insurance good for? And you said, well, Jay, it's only good if you
die.
It's good if you die.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody you come in contact with, if you ask the next 10 people you come in contact with, what's life insurance good for? They're all going to give you the same reply. It's only good if you die.
Right.
What I have with Transamerica cannot cure cancer, but it can be used as a shock absorber against it. And I say that in the term of something that's called living benefits. Living benefits comes in a term product and also a permanent plan. It would cover illnesses such as if someone was diagnosed with cancer, heart attack, stroke, ALS, grocery list of illnesses a mile long, end-stage renal failure, unable to perform 2 of the 6 daily living activities like eating and bathing and dressing, for example. That and also the loss of 2 or more limbs. Great product. If someone was diagnosed with that, they could withdraw up to 90% of their coverage amount. In other words, you wouldn't have to die to collect like you would with typical policies out there. A lot of people feel like the only way you can benefit is if you die. And I heard one guy tell me this, Jay, why do I want to leave a lot of money to my wife so she can run off with a boyfriend? It's
shame on him.
Shame it is. But the thing about it is we take that worry away. You can actually be benefiting. You can be living and benefit from your life insurance policy. It's helped out a lot of folks that, for example, if they were diagnosed, they could withdraw money to pay off mortgages, car loans, you name it. You do what you want with those funds instead of just, we don't tell you what to do with it. It's your opinion. It's your call. A lot of people have no idea that a product like that is out there.
I think I told you that same thing. I had no clue.
And you're not alone.
Yeah.
So many out there. In your mind, Krystal, seeing what your mom went through, knowing with what, let's face it, if you didn't do the due diligence to go to the doctors and say, hey, what do I need to do?
Right.
Could this affect me? There's a chance, there's no chance. They told you it was coming for you, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's something that people would benefit from hearing about right here in the small town of Hickory, North Carolina, for example?
Absolutely. And it's funny that you say, I don't know if it's social media or just word of mouth or just more population, but hearing about even young people, right? Like 20s, 30s, teens that I've even heard. But it's more prevalent. Like, I don't know if it's just, again, like social media, if you just hear about it a lot, but I feel like every couple of weeks, I see that someone that I went to high school with or a friend of mine's parents, is getting sick. Like, I don't know if it's just the reality that we live in, and I don't know if I'm just getting older, right? And so people that I surround myself with, if I'm just hearing it more because of age, but I could think of numerous people, like just right off the top of my head, that something like this would be helpful. And even circling back to my mom, she was single, right? She lived on her own and she worked full time. And so when she got sick, like she had her insurance policy through work, right? And it had like a little, like a cancer added benefit to it. But in all reality, for her to have any type of treatment and her to get help and just maintain living, right? Like, she had to do that herself.
Exactly.
And it got to a point where she physically could not work anymore. And it was weird to see, because she was so literally the most strong-willed, independent person I've ever met in my life, still to this day. But it was hard to watch, like, her try to navigate that process, because she wanted to still, like, do it on her own and provide for herself. But, you know, being in her mid-50s and being a single female, like, she just kind of got in a position where she felt stuck. Like, do I do treatment, or do I, like, keep myself strong enough without treatment, like, continue to work to pay for my bills? And of course, you know, like, a lot of us rallied around her to help the best way we could, but her being herself, like, she hated that. She hated not being able to provide for herself. And I hated watching her struggle, like, back and forth, right, with the right decision to make. Exactly. So especially something like that, you know, like, thinking about while she was here and, like, that added cushion, just to give her a little bit more comfort and, like, even to keep her self-esteem boosted as long as it possibly could, right? That she could support herself, because even if you're sick, like, you still want to keep your dignity, right? Like, true. You still want to stay true to who you are. Like, she handled it better than me going downhill, like, seeing her, but I know that it was, like, no one wants to see their self-control, like, slip away from them. Right. So I think financially, right, having that extra cushion would have given her a little bit more control, a little bit longer, and maybe even felt better, like, leaving me behind, you know, because she was just, moms, like, by nature, always want to make sure that their children are taken care of. So it probably would have given her a little more comfort in that too, and not thinking that her daughter was going to help her with anything. And right. But I was happy to. She just, I don't know, I could imagine it would help a lot of people.
It takes whenever people are diagnosed with cancer or have heart attack issues, when they're down. Yeah. What's one of the things we see that's advertised? A fish fry, a GoFundMe, yeah, right? Yes. It takes that away
and
from it.
And community is incredible, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Right. It takes that away.
Right, but it does take that. Yeah.
That people could sit back and have that without having to sit back and say, "Can you orchestrate this event for me? Can you do this GoFundMe? Can we have this fish fry?"
Yeah.
The way I found out about you, Krystal, was, did you used to work, or you knew some ladies that worked at the local hospital at Fry?
Yeah, I worked in the operating room there.
You worked there?
Yeah.
Can you tell me about, there was didn't the ladies there, they had, some of them had, was it breast cancer or something like that?
Gosh, it's harder. It's been a few years. Yeah. I'm trying to think of, I know a lot of them had, there was one girl in particular, a nurse in there. I know that her mom had cancer, and she was currently going through it while I was there. And honestly, I think it was before they knew my mom was sick, right? Because I think my youngest was 18 months old, when I stopped working in the OR there. So it was before I got tested, but it wasn't very long before my mom passed away. So they were very active in my journey through mom's process, right? So they probably heard a lot of those stories, and they're incredible women there. I don't know. They just, to have even a medical side of things, but also a very true, genuine side of people to just discuss it with, people that have gone through it, right? Yes. But that brings you back to your topic, most people are going through it, or most people know someone or is related to someone or has a close friend that have been in these exact same circumstances.
You're right. Do you think, Krystal, would you say that whenever somebody gets hit with cancer, is it something that's ever on somebody's calendar? Is it ever?
No.
You know what? It never is, right?
Yeah.
It's just you go to the doctor and you get hit with some information,
right?
Some diagnosis you wouldn't plan on having,
right?
And when that happens, your world takes a different turn, right?
Yeah.
How do we get rid of this?
Yeah.
How do we take care of it? Sometimes people are lucky, right? They're healed from it.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're not.
But not without any cost.
There's always a bill that comes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, doctors, they want to help you. They want to give you, but also they're going to give you a bill for it.
Yeah.
And it's normally not something that you see on the McDonald's dollar menu.
Mm-mm.
So
yeah, absolutely not. And it's looping it back in, and I know we told a little bit about my story. My mother-in-law, it's funny, Jay, you talk about calendars. In 2 weeks, my mom and my mother-in-law were diagnosed with breast cancer, and then within the same year, my mom's sister was diagnosed. So it's a shock to the system. Like, it's never ever planned. You literally have no clue. And the severity of that hitting in one family all at one time too, right?
yes.
It's not anything that people plan for. It's kind of sad. Like, it's weird to think that that's something you should plan for, right? Like, and you don't know until it happens, right? It can't happen to me. My family's healthy. We all take good care of ourselves.
Sure.
And but the truth is, like, cancer doesn't have a preference.
It's not prejudice, right?
No, like, it does not care. It absolutely doesn't care. Yeah, family history, genetics, certain things play a role in it, but then sometimes, like, it just, you never know.
We plan for vacations, right?
Yeah.
We plan for those fun things we like to do with our families, but we never plan for what if. I get it. I know, Dr. J, that cancer is a real thing. I know that a heart attack is a real thing, or stroke. But I think it'll probably happen to the next person.
Right.
It's not going to happen to me.
No.
I'm going to play Russian roulette.
Right.
Roll the dice and just take the gamble. And it's sad that we can exercise every day. We can eat right, exercise, and not have a past history of cancer.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, right?
Right.
It just happens.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm just so adamant about the product I've got with Transamerica.
Right.
Literally, you'd be so surprised about how many people I come in contact with, and they say, Jay, I had no idea you had a product that could do all that.
Yeah.
Because it covers more than just your death.
Right.
Well, yes, it does. And I just think it's something the world needs to hear because, as I said earlier, I can't prevent cancer, can't stop it.
Right.
But what I've got is a product that can be used as a shock absorber against that terrible illness that a lot of people go through with nothing, nothing at all.
Right.
I just think everybody in the Unifour of Hickory, North Carolina needs to hear about it.
Yeah.
And the story you've got, Krystal, it's extraordinary. It's different, but it's real, right?
Absolutely.
You're not somebody out from California. You're somebody right here in Hickory that has had people in your family and people that you've worked with a local hospital. I believe they had maybe, I was told, close to half a dozen nurses in that.
I'm sure.
In that department.
Yeah.
Nurses that people that are what? They take care of themselves, which we hope to do, right?
Well, yeah. They probably, I don't know. Nurses can kind of be like, well, it's probably nothing. We'll just, we'll just check it a little bit later.
It can happen to anybody. A lot of people, they have they think it's only going to happen to certain people that have bad habits.
Right.
But it'll never happen to that person in the mirror. And you wake up that one morning and you find out, it's happened to me, and what's my next step?
Now what? Yeah.
Exactly. So, but you had a great support staff with your husband and your family, which was, it's a godsend.
My friends, the community, like, everyone was incredible. And at the same time, though, like, talking about that shock absorber, again, community is incredible. And the people that rallied around me and my story and were there for my children, right? Like, not just me, and like just to even keep them entertained and come and pick them up and let them go play, and to give my husband a break because he needed one. He was getting it from all corners, it's incredible. It's incredible because people want to help, right? But at the same time, for the person receiving it, again, I could never say thank you enough, right? Like, I'm incredibly grateful for the people around me, but at the same time, like, if someone wanted to come in and help make my bed or heat food up for me or something, when my husband went back to work, it was so hard for me to let people do that. Like, people were bringing us food left and right, which, again, I immensely thankful. Yeah. So thankful. And, and I enjoy doing that for other people, but at the same time, it's so hard to ask for that help. Right. And it's almost hard to accept it, right? Because then you're still kind of beating yourself up about it. Like, was it this bad? Like, did I really deserve all of this help? Like, did I really need all of this? And yes, Jay, absolutely needed it. I was just too hard-headed to admit it at the time. But financially to not have to worry about that, right? Like to not like even question yourself, question your like not even self-worth. That's not the correct way to say it, but your abilities, like physically even, or like your emotional capacity to accept things like that. And I can't imagine like monetary value, right? Like it would be hard to just be like, oh, well, here I am. Like I'm in this position where, I mean, it truly is helpful, but it's still hard. It's still hard to be agreeable when people want to hand you things, right?
Right.
So if you have that opportunity and that cushion, like for yourself in the back of your mind, to just like go ahead to know that you're ready and you're not going to have to depend on someone else. I'll say financially. I still would like people to bring me chicken pies if they would like to.
They're always good. Chicken's always good.
Yeah. But I could just, and going back to the community and the people that you know, and the people that I know and the people that I have come in contact with over the years, like that have been affected by heart disease or cancer or any type of like illness. I could see like every single time, like just in the back of their minds, if they had this plan, right? If they had this policy and they knew that it was available, I could see why people would jump on it. Like, right. It's a no-brainer.
I appreciate the vote of confidence. Looks like God took care of you well during
absolutely.
This time. I mean, it's an amazing gift.
Yeah, for sure.
Krystal, I appreciate your time today, telling us your story. It's I told you folks it was going to be a good story, and I think we delivered.
Well, I hope so.
100%. I want to get the word out to everybody that it can happen to people. I'm 48 years young. Krystal, you are
34 years young.
34-ish. 34-ish.
34-ish.
It can happen any age in between, even younger than that.
Yeah.
It doesn't discriminate like we've talked about before. But folks, in closing, I appreciate you being a part of my first podcast. I've got a product that, as I've stated before, and I'll say it for the third time because I think people need to hear about it. I've got living benefits with my term and permanent products with Transamerica, second to none. And literally half my business in the past 7.5 years comes from folks that already have life insurance. I just show folks what I've got versus what they're paying for with the competition. Once I do that, they become clients of mine because they like the value, they like my rates. Some of them even like me. So thank you all for being a part of this podcast. I am Dr. J with Unifour Life and Retirement, reminding you that this doctor doesn't make house calls. God bless you, and I'll look forward to talking to you later on.